let's just jump right in. We are about to explore one of the most incredible archaeological finds of the 20th century. I'm talking about a discovery that totally flipped our understanding of early Christianity on its head. This is the story of a collection of lost books hidden away in the Egyptian desert for more than 1,600 years. Books filled with gospels and teachings that were literally erased from history. Now, to really get why this discovery is so huge, I want you to just think about this question for a second. You know the saying, history is written by the victors? Well, what if the version of early Christianity that we all know today is just one side of a very, very old story? What if there were other voices? Voices that were silenced, buried, and forgotten? Well, until now. So this whole thing kicks off not in some fancy university or a dusty library, but with a simple peasant, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. This is the unbelievable, almost made-for-Hollywood story of how these texts came to light. Okay, so picture it. The year is 1945. It's December, we're in Upper Egypt. A local farmer, a guy named Muhammad Ali al-Saman, is out with his brothers. He's not looking for ancient treasure or anything like that. He's just digging for fertilizer, a type of soft soil for his crops. You know, just another totally normal day's work. And then, as he's digging, his tool hits something hard. Thunk. He starts clearing away the dirt and uncovers this huge, sealed red clay jar. It's almost a meter tall, clearly ancient and clearly hidden there on purpose. You can just imagine the moment, right?
So Muhammad Ali, he freezes. His first thought is pure superstition. What if there's a jinn, a spirit, trapped inside? But then another thought pushes its way in. What if it's full of gold? It's that classic human tug of war. Fear on one side, greed on the other.
Well, greed wins. He lifts his mattock and he smashes the jar open. But inside, no gold. And thankfully no jinn. What he finds instead is a different kind of treasure. Something way more valuable. 13 ancient books. These old papyrus manuscripts, all bound in dark leather. Now, the fact that we can even talk about these books today is honestly a flat-out miracle. Muhammad takes them home, and his mom, not knowing what they are, actually burns some of the pages to light her oven. Then things get even crazier. He gets caught up in a blood feud to avenge his father's murder. Panicked about the police searching his house, he dumps the books on a local priest. From there, they hit the black market and get scattered to the winds. It's just staggering how close they came to being lost forever. So, what was actually in these books that somehow survived this insane journey? Well, this is where a complete accident becomes a theological earthquake. Let's just look at the very first line from one of the most famous texts in the collection, the Gospel of Thomas. It opens with, "These are the secret words which the living Jesus spoke." Whoa, right off the bat, you know you're not in Kansas anymore. Secret words? A living Jesus? And a writer named Judas Thomas, who is supposedly Jesus' twin? Yeah, this is not Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. And the sayings themselves are just as wild. The Jesus in these texts, he sounds less like a preacher and more like a mystical guru. I mean, listen to this. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. That's not about sin and redemption. It's about self-knowledge. It's more like a Zen koan. And then there's this bombshell from the Gospel of Philip. It calls Mary Magdalene the companion of Jesus. It says that Christ loved her more than all the other disciples and, get this, used to kiss her often on her mouth. I mean, the implications of that one sentence, they're just staggering. It presents a totally different picture of Jesus in his inner circle. And this was a whole library. There were 52 different texts in total. Many of them were Gospels no one had ever heard of, like the Gospel of Truth. Some retold the story of Genesis, but from the serpent's point of view. Others had a divine feminine power speaking in the first person. And here's the kicker. These weren't late medieval forgeries. They were translations of ancient Greek texts, and some scholars think the originals could be just as old as the Gospels in the New Testament. Okay, so this incredible, radical collection of writings belongs to a brand of early Christianity that we now call Gnosticism. And to really get the books, we gotta get the core idea behind them. The magic word here is gnosis. It's a Greek word that means knowledge. But we're not talking about book smarts or memorizing facts. Gnosis is insight. It's knowledge you get from personal experience, from intuition. For the Gnostics, salvation wasn't about faith in a creed. It was about discovering this deep inner knowledge, this realization that to know yourself is to know God.
And when you put it side by side with what became traditional Christianity, the differences are just, wow. Orthodox Christianity focuses on sin and repentance. The Gnostics, they were focused on illusion and enlightenment. Orthodox tradition says God is totally separate from us. The Gnostics said, no, the divine spark is you. And Jesus wasn't this unique being to be worshipped from afar. He was a spiritual guide to be emulated, someone who showed you how to find the divine within yourself.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question. If these ideas were floating around back then, why did they disappear? Why were these books buried in a jar on the side of a cliff in Egypt?
The answer is, there was a war of ideas. A battle for the very soul of Christianity was raging. And we can actually hear it in the words of one of the leaders of the Orthodox side, a bishop named Irenaeus. Writing way back in 180 AD, he's complaining about heretics, his word for the Gnostics, who boast that they possess more gospels than there really are. The battle lines were already drawn.
And this conflict escalated into a full-blown suppression. First, there was debate. Then, powerful bishops like Irenaeus started writing entire books calling these gospels heresy. Then, by the 4th century, Christianity becomes the official state religion of the Roman Empire, and suddenly, just owning one of these books is a crime. They were hunted down, they were burned. So the Nag Hammadi books weren't lost by accident, they were hidden. Someone, probably a monk, took this precious library, sealed it in that jar, and buried it to save it from the flames.
So the survival of this one jar, against all odds, it's had a massive impact. It really forces us to completely rewrite the story of how Christianity began.
And here's the main takeaway, the single most important lesson from this entire discovery. The Nag Hammadi Library proves that early Christianity was not one single, unified religion. The popular idea of a single church with one set of beliefs right from the start, it's a myth. It just wasn't true.
What these texts show us is a much messier and, frankly, a much more interesting picture. For the first couple of centuries, there was no New Testament. There were dozens of gospels and all kinds of teachings floating around. The early Christian world was this vibrant, chaotic marketplace of ideas. The group that eventually became Orthodox was just one brand competing among many. The Gnostic Gospels, they're the voices of the losers in that conflict, and we're finally getting to hear their side of the story. So we'll end on this thought. The Nag Hammadi Library was history told from the perspective of the losers, hidden for 16 centuries and then found by total chance. And it really makes you wonder, what else is out there? What other histories have been buried or suppressed or just forgotten and are still just waiting to be found?